actually it's our school song, so we're going to take a second just to sing that for you too.
Children, I'd like to thank you so much. That was a beautiful job, very much in tune. And I'm a former music teacher, so I appreciate good intonation. I'm Jessie Barth, and I'd like to welcome you here tonight. We're really so excited to have you here. It's like a party. And I'd like to tell you how this whole idea got started, very briefly. 2 years ago at the alumni dinner, my husband and I were thinking of moving back to Perry from State College where we were living. And we met Marjorie Shaw, and my husband said to her, I don't know if you remember me. And she said, oh, of course I remember you. You lived where spring came from. And we looked at her with a quizzical view, and if any of you know Marjorie and her humor, she had a twinkle in her eye. And she knew we didn't understand. So she said, well, when I was a little girl in Perry, as you know, the winters were very long. And so I would ask my parents, when is spring going to come? And they would say, spring is just around the corner. And she lived on Walnut Federal Street, and my husband lived on Cherry Street. So she assumed that spring always started on Cherry Street. And I thought that was such a cute story. And I thought, there must be thousands of wonderful stories like that here in this beautiful town of Perry that need to be recorded and told. So I happened to be at the Letchworth Access Cable Television Station, and I met Adam Knapp, and I was saying to Adam, I'd love to do something with videotaping folks telling their stories. And Art Tamrosky looked at me and he said, I have a better idea. I'd like you to host your own TV show. And I'd never done that, and I thought, well, great, what a wonderful opportunity. And so that's how this idea came about. So then I thought, well, I called the show the Perry Connection, and it's all about connections. And so I was really thinking one morning about Perry and about the connection, and the thought came to me to check out Perry. And I knew instinctively that it meant Oliver Hazard Perry, and I knew nothing about this man except that he had something to do with the War of 1812. So I went to the library, and I found out that he was a hero of such great proportions. So I'd like to just tell you briefly a little bit about him, and you can see from your program that his picture's on the front. So when we talk about the Perry Principal Project, we are, of course, talking about our community of Perry, but even more importantly, we're talking about Oliver Hazard Perry and the wonderful attributes that he displayed. He was born in Rhode Island in 1785, and at the age of 13, he became a sailor on his father's ship. And so he started sailing around the world. He was a citizen of the world. When he was 28, he was in charge of the ships on Lake Erie. And he successfully defeated the British Navy there. In fact, he was the first in history to defeat a British squadron and successfully to bring back every ship to his base as a prize of war. And at age 28, he was hailed as a national hero and promoted to a captain. But the interesting story is that literally 15 minutes before the victory, it looked like it was utter defeat. His ship, the Lawrence, was sinking, and most of the men on the ship had been killed. So he and 3 others got into a rowboat, and they rowed amidst all the firing and the cannons to another boat, an American ship that was just sort of watching. And so he commandeered the ship, told the commanding officer to go to another ship. He took that ship and went right into the fire But at that point, of course, it was all sailboats. The wind changed, and it was on his side, and the British squadron boats ran into each other, and Perry claimed the victory. But the most interesting thing about it, in fact, I should say, he wrote a letter, and he was very famous for this letter, and it says, "Dear General, we have met the enemy, and they are ours. 2 ships, 2 brigs, 1 schooner, and 1 sloop. Yours with great respect and esteem, O.H. Perry." Now, this was a heroism, but to me, the real heroic act was that when the British naval officers surrendered, they offered their sword, which was the tradition, and Perry refused to take their swords because he said they had fought a good fight. And then later on, some of the British sailors could not get back to England because they had been defeated. So out of his own cash, Perry paid for the enemy to go back to England. He was that kind of man. And later, he was charged challenged to a duel. And this was a nemesis that had bothered him a long time, and Perry had every reason to hate him. And at the duel, as you know, kids, there are 2 people, and they march their paces, and then they turn and they shoot. And so his nemesis, or enemy, so-called, had the opportunity to shoot first, and he shot right at Perry and missed him. And so Perry was able to reciprocate, but instead of shooting the person, he asked the second in command to read a letter of apology. And he said to the man, "I hope that this apology will make amends." And so he was that kind of man. So this evening, we are going to be giving each of our local heroes and citizens a certificate. And this is called the Perry Commendation of Distinction. And I'd like to read what it says. I'm sure you'll get to see it. It's beautiful, on beautiful paper, created by Doug McDaniel. And it says at the top, "We have met the enemy and they are ours." And then it says, "Perry Principal Project, Commendation of Distinction, presented to," in this particular case, it's Dorothy Regis, on June 20th, 2007, "in appreciation for your life work and service to our community as a citizen whose individual virtues have enriched the greater good of Perry, New York." And then it's presented by the Perry School District in conjunction with Ledgeworth Cable Access, the Perry Principal Project, Perry Garden Club, Wyoming Rights, the Village and Town of Perry, Perry Main Street Association, the Perry Area Ministerial Association, and the Perry Bicentennial Committee. And then it is signed with the seal of Perry by our Mayor, Howard Wood, and by our Superintendent of Schools, Stan White. And each of our participants will receive this commendation of distinction because they are our local heroes who have overcome the enemy of fear, disease, death, and they need to be recognized. Each of our honored citizens is a hero in his or her own way. And each one has turned something bad into an opportunity for something good, and for the greater good of our community. And for this, we applaud you, and we thank you for sharing your personal stories of challenges and victories. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Robin Finley, who is the chairman of the Perry Central High School English Department. Robin.
Thank you very much. Last fall, Jessie approached me with the seed of an idea that she had about a project which would celebrate the contributions that the people of Perry have made to this town. I thought perhaps that would be an appropriate project for the college journalism class to be involved in, and we began to make our plans, interview a variety of citizens. But the seed grew and began to evolve into something so much more than a school project. And soon I had students volunteering to become involved, and I'd like to repeat that, volunteering to become involved. Months later, as I collected the first drafts of these interviews, something extraordinary began to happen for me. I was reminded in a very special way of the deep and abiding faith that the people of Perry have, of the kindness and generosity that fill this town, and of the sense of connectedness that people feel to Perry. And a bridge was formed between those students who interviewed and who represent the future, and the interviewees representing past and present. The citizens who have participated in this project represent diversity in age, background, personality, and contributions to this community. The seed that was planted last fall, and which has thus far grown into what you see tonight, is not yet done growing. We will continue this project, as I know that there are many who yet have a story to tell. I would like to thank everyone who has participated, students and citizens alike. You have all been so wonderful, and I have to say, I am so proud of these kids. They have done an extraordinary job with this project. I am very, very proud of them. And I am honored to continue to be a part of this program in this wonderful place called Perry. Now, for the students. I would like to introduce tonight the senior college journalism students who will come to the podium and introduce your citizens. Matthew Hint, Mike Pitcher, who is not here this evening, Victoria McClurg, Megan Wheeler, Rob Schelk, Caitlin McDaniel, Adam Knapp, Nicole Sherman, Kylie Hennig, Nicole Brandt, and Brian Hale. Students, please come to the podium, introduce your citizen by name, announce your attributes, and take a certificate. Remain standing to the left of your citizen for the awarding of the certificates.
Dorothy Regis, hardworking, genuine, and musical.
Lou Cerveni, philanthropic, humble, and supportive.
Michelle Rexberger, genuine, musical, and family-oriented. Don Hughes, courageous, reliable, and musical.
Tammy Quilty, honest, compassionate, and genuine.
Fletcher Parker, hardworking, wise, and family-oriented.
Ruth Parker, genuine, caring, and compassionate.
Howard Wood, selfless, enthusiastic, and honorable. Dave Shearing, cooperative, hardworking, and caring. Julie Sanford, personable, inspirational, and wise.
Amelia Cervica, faithful, happy, strong.
Bob Pasco, genuine, honorable, faithful.
I would now like to introduce Mr. Wes Klein, representing the Perry Alumni Association.
Hi everyone. I'd
like to welcome everybody here and anyone who is an alumni of Perry Central School. This Saturday night, we are having our 130th anniversary. And I look out there and I think I see a couple that have maybe been around for most of them, but I'm not quite sure. But anyway, this beautiful quilt above us there is going to be raffled off. And it was made by a lady who was in the class of 1962, Mary Ann Newman Lindroth. And we are selling tickets out back afterwards, $5 a ticket or $3 for $10. Anybody would like to purchase them, we'd be glad to sell them. And again, please come to our reunion on Saturday night, our 130th. Thank you.
Rehearse. We're going to have Marge Shaw come down and sing the original alma mater, not the one we're going to learn tonight, but the one that prior to the gold and the blue. So we can have Marge come down here, wherever, and stand. Are you going to sing right here, Marge, or up on the board up there? And also, any of the alumni who sang in the chorus, any alumni that are here, please come up here right now and stand on the podium, on the stands. And, 5th and 6th grade chorus, please come up and stand here. Any alumni, alumnus, anyone, please come up. If you are so inclined, Dan, you can come up. I'll direct you. Come on, buddy. We are just going to, after Marge sings her alma mater, we're just going to woodshed a little bit and go over the alma mater, and then at the end, we are going to, all of us, stand and sing the alma mater on this. While we're walking up there, I just want to say a couple things about Marge. She is like a Perry icon, one of the sweetest people that any of us have ever known. And I believe, if I'm right, I believe she's sung in the Rotary Chorus 60 years. Okay, 50, sorry. I should never say that to a lady. 50 years in the Rotary Chorus. She's always taking part, very community-oriented. So, without further ado,
Although Yale has always favored the violet's dark hue, and the gentle sons of Harvard to the crimson rose are true. We will hold the daisy tender and keep its color bright, while the high school stands defender of the yellow and the white.
Thank you so much, Mike. You've been living that life just by your own. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, now we're going to do an A flat.
Celebration.
are the junior honors English students who are our volunteers for this project, and would their citizens please come to the stage? Our students are Jackie Ralph, Melanie Benarski, Casey Kibler, John McKay, Caitlin McGinnis, Brittany Quetchin, Katie Sunt, Matt McMillan, Casey Salamanca, and Chelsea Schrum. Students, please come to the podium, introduce your citizen by name, announce your attributes, and take a certificate. Remain standing to the left of your citizen for the awarding of the certificates, and I can't believe that I omitted this name. The one on the end is my daughter, Mackenzie Bonadonna. I'm sorry. I'll pay for this later. She interviewed her grandparents, Tony and Jean.
Betty Rice, hardworking, caring, and successful.
Marjorie Shaw, faithful, loving, and humorous.
Mark Saunders, interesting, caring, and friendly. Richard Saunders, welcoming, faithful, dedicated. Vernon Saunders, funny, upbeat, and enthusiastic. Gary Jerkowski, determined, involved, and compassionate. Elisa Walker, charismatic, friendly, and compassionate.
And Burlingham, honest, caring, genuine.
Lorraine Stern, family-oriented, humble, and wise. Eric Kelly, musical, perceptive, and caring.
Jean Bonadonna, friendly, hardworking, and strong, and Tony Bonadonna, involved, compassionate, and conversational.
We would now like to present the Commendation of Distinction and to say thank you for your service to the greater good of Perry. Once again, I would like to say thank you so much to my students who have been such an inspiration to me. This year and always, they are the future of this wonderful town. Thank you.
We talked about having a keynote speaker. I knew that I wanted to have Dan Saunders because I had heard all about him. And also being a music teacher myself, I was very impressed with his credentials. Dan Saunders from Perry, New York, has achieved the epitome of musical success. He plays with all the major musicians in the world. We are talking Pavarotti, Domingo, Kathleen Battles, Jesse Norman, just to name a few. He has been on television. He has been interviewed by Katie Couric. He has played at the White House. He plays all around the world. Earlier this month, he was conducting an opera at the Kennedy Center. In July, he will be conducting a vocal conference workshop performance in Tel Aviv, Israel. But tonight, he said yes, he would like nothing better than to be here in Perry on this stage for this event. Dan is a wonderful man, and in thinking about him, I thought I should list some attributes that I discovered in just having met him. And they would be disciplined, gifted, accomplished, and since he's our keynote speaker, he gets 4. And the 4th one is generous. He has been so generous with his time, with his spirit, and it is with great privilege and honor that I introduce to you our keynote speaker, Dan Saunders.
Because I'm blind, this is going to lift up my pages. There we go. Good evening. Can you all hear me? I spend most of my life getting singers and players to project, but my speaking voice sometimes gives out on me. I'd like to thank Jesse, the Perry Principal Project, and all involved. I can see that this took a lot of work. Let's give them all a hand. Okay. I learned how to drive out here in the driveway at PCS. Mr. Bell was my driver's ed teacher. Is Mr. Bell here tonight? I still call him Mr., by the way. Only teacher. I think I'm not a bad driver, and I thought instead of a talk, what I'd like to do is take you on a little trip. But we have to in our imaginations. If you just close your eyes for a minute, can you see the Empire State Building? See how that looks? Now we're going to go about 110 blocks north of there in Manhattan, New York City. And you can open your eyes now, and there is my beautiful 1995 Nissan Altima, right outside my apartment. And I'd like to invite you all, and in my imagination, it's big enough. It's down at Basil's right now, being repaired. But it's big enough for you all to get in. And I'll do the driving, so just sit back and relax. Now, relaxing in New York traffic doesn't happen. We're crossing the great George Washington Bridge, going out west. We turn right at Scranton, we get up to Binghamton. Now we all know Binghamton to Corning, pretty boring. The minute we get to Corning, the magic begins. This is where I start getting excited. Aren't the hills beautiful? We go through Bath, Dansville, and there it is, the exit for Mount Morris. Whoops, we gotta slow down. Deer. Don't want to hit any of those. My pulse begins to slow. You guys start to relax as I slow down. My blood pressure lowers by the minute. You think I'm crazy because I start humming an old Baptist hymn that I learned? You've got to remember that I'm on my way home. Sign for Letchworth Park. My friends that I tell about Letchworth Park in the city, they laugh when I tell them it's called the Grand Canyon of the East. Until they see it. The sun is brilliant because I usually am taking those hills late in the afternoon. You know, that wonderful sun. And Perry is kind of up on that hill. So we're going down, we're at Pine Tavern, okay? I could go straight to Perry Center, but I decided to turn left. Take that twisty, windy business, pastures, farmland. I begin to relax even more. Then I see the sign, welcome to the village of Perry. There's there's Simmons Road there on the right. The names start coming back to me. Sternberg, who was our family doctor. His wife was a gracious Southern lady, good friend of my mom's. There were Russ and Jamie Clark, pillars of our community, wonderful people. George and Lois Reed, who still live right there at the right. She was Lois Stiles then, and she was our art teacher, taught us how to see things. Now we're on Main Street, North Main Street, right? And don't you love that procession of those stately homes on either side, and those big maple trees that never seem to go away. They never die. They're always there. On the left are the old Traber homes. I mowed their lawns. George Traber and his son, George Traber III, were presidents of Perry Knitting Mill. Nighty Nights made Perry famous. My family enjoyed many a summer in the cottage Dad built on the Traber track on Silver Lake. There's the old Bonadonna place. Dr. Zerbe and his family just bought that. Did you know Dr. Zerbe and his family, in addition to being our very, very faithful family doctor, also has a special class at our church in which my brother Mark, who many of you know, includes and embraces. There on the right are Lisa and John Wheeler's place. Their beautiful landscaping kind of says it all, doesn't it? Beautiful, beautiful people. The memories begin to flow even faster. I'm getting more and more excited. There are members of the Jacuzzo family come to mind. Every one of them more beautiful than the next. We're now turning right, and this shows you how long it's been. I thought we were turning right on Hawthorne, and Mark said, no, that's Leicester. Okay? There's the Baptist Church. Lots of memories there. They bought a real grand piano, with 3 legs and everything. And I beat the goodness, I guess that word's okay, out of that thing. Playing cantatas with my mom, who was the choir director and organist. Dad, chairman of the board of trustees. It's where my brothers and I learned the faith of our fathers. My hometown has truly majestic and beautiful old churches. My dad spent many, many days, as did Dave Phillips, Henry DeCamp, and many others, on that beautiful old church. Then there on the right is St. Joseph Church. And as a Baptist, I'd go by the Catholic Church and I just hoped that door was open because I could see that magical white marble altar. It just looked beautiful. I always wanted to see that. I love that. On the left, the Presbyterian Church. And I know just down the road, because John Matson showed me the other day, the newly renovated Methodist Church. Gorgeous houses of worship. And then we come to the biggie. For all of you younger, doesn't mean a thing. It's kind of a big old building down there. But for many of us, I'm looking at the old Perry Elementary School. The grand old lady. She refuses to die because we don't want her to. We want her to continue. I always point out, nobody cares, of course, except me, Mrs. Hadcock's room, right? My kindergarten room. And I remember Mom took me there, and I cried my eyes out until I saw the big blocks. And man, I was off like a shot. Never looked back. We turn left on Grove Street. My pulse begins to speed up again, but this time it's for a good reason. Carl Lowry, good friend of my brother, will see us turning. He always calls my parents just to let them know that we're on our way. More memories. The Grove Street gang. The Newmans, the Knapps, the Roberts, the Cruters. Throwing rotten apples and tomatoes at each other in the fall. We would have these big fights with the Hawthorne Street gang, we always won. And actually, Mary Newman, Bill Newman was my buddy. His older sister made this legal quote. Suddenly, I want to run up on somebody's front porch and ask their parents if they can come out to play. Then finally, there it is, 10 Grove Street. There she is, the only home I've ever known. It's still the home of my parents, Vernon and Gertrude Saunders, and my brother Mark. For you see, we've arrived. We're home. You can get out of the car now. Thank goodness Dan got us here. Take a deep breath. I didn't do so bad, did I? Oh, you're applauding because you think, oh good, that's it. Captive audience. Of course, the first one at the door is my brother Mark. Of course, he's been in the car, so don't, we've already gotten out of the cars. If you haven't met my brother, you haven't lived in Perry very long. What kind of place is Perry? On our drive, we're reminded of its physical beauty. Perry is also a safe place. Perry is, here's the title, a people place. Just who are some of these people of Perry? One of my closest friends, and it's one of the things I genuinely treasure about Perry, are the long-standing relationships. I haven't seen my Hughes for quite a number of years, and it was just like old home, like we've never been apart. It's just the way Perry is. Anyway, one of my closest friends to this day, and I've got to put in a plug, I'm sorry for the class of 1968. Is Bill Roberts, who was our president. The Roberts family has always been an important part of Perry's people. I know Betsy's here, and Louie, her husband. Ross can't be here with us. Anyway, Bill's father is Ross Roberts, well known to many of you. To some of us older, we know him as from Roberts Rexall Drugs. And I'm going to set up this story that Bill sent me on the email the other day, because I thought, can I tell this story? But if I tell you who these men became, I think it's funny. Mr. Roberts, Ross Roberts, founding member of Rotary, fire chief, president of the school board, town supervisor, Wyoming County supervisor, as well as chairman of the board of supervisors. It's pretty impressive. Bill's granddad, Ross's father, was the Venerable Frank Roberts, who wrote the still definitive history of Perry. Incidentally, Bill is now working on a subsequent history of Perry to carry on where his grandmother left off. Keeping all of these accomplishments in mind, I think you'll get a kick out of the following email I got from Bill. Bill writes, when my grandfather was in 8th grade, there used to be an apple orchard behind what was for us the elementary school, where the playgrounds are. My grandfather and his pals cut down all the trees one night because they wanted to put in a baseball field. He says, talk about initiative. Unfortunately, the powers that be didn't see it that way, and my grandfather was kicked out of school. He started working at Mr. Baker's drugstore, eventually studied from Mr. Baker's textbooks. He said he went to Albany and took a test, and he became a pharmacist. Just like that. He says, my father, Ross Roberts, graduated from high school, didn't know what to do, so was a postgraduate student at PCS. You could do that at that time. His behavior and attendance were not to the principal's liking, however, and he was also asked to leave. He says, I feel rather proud that I was the first Roberts male to make it through PCS without getting expelled. We are characters, all right. Bill called from Nashville last night to wish me well. He said one of his enduring memories of Perry is coming up down North Main Street, just as you come over the cusp of the hill, seeing those old Christmas lights, which were so beautiful. And I don't think he was here this last Christmas, because I told him that I hadn't seen Main Street look so beautiful for many, many years. I just thought it was beautiful. Now, I had to practice this next one. The next Perry people person personified is none other than John Matson. John recently retired as president of Hartz Insurance. We're very worried about him, so give him an extra quarter here and there. He's a graduate of PCS and a good friend. I only kid my good friends. They may not be my good friends for long. John is a walking Perry Chamber of Commerce. Over lunch this week, he revealed that, quote, having lived in New York City, working on Wall Street for 2 years was all I needed to know, that this was not a lifetime proposition. You cannot collect automobiles in Manhattan. Unquote. Recently, in a Perry Herald article, John said, quote, I was just another one of those people who couldn't wait to get out of Perry and then couldn't wait to get back. Now, get a load of this title. He's a senior member of the advisory board of the Perry Alumni Association. I was thinking as I wrote that out, I thought, why is it as you get older, your titles get longer? I don't know what that's about. Anyway, he said this week's alumni banquet is its 130th, with over 500 attending annually. John explained, what does that tell you about Perry alumni? He told me superintendents in nudity area are always amazed. I think that's very cool. We would be remiss here if we did not mention our good friend and lovely lady Sharon Holtz, who, as longtime historian and secretary of the association, has worked so tirelessly. Her grandfather married my grandmother, so I don't know what that makes us. A major contributor to the health of Perry's business world is none other than the Gullo family. Having just returned from World War II, Sam told me that his parents opened family furniture. In their grand opening sale in 1946, they sold every stick of furniture they had in the store. Talk about timing, right? All the soldiers coming back, new families, 1946. Perfect place, perfect time for a furniture store. He said, quote, offering their customers good values, treating them right, was their way of doing business and continues to be how we do business today. Family furniture is the oldest, he thinks, we can be corrected here, he thinks, the oldest downtown business run continuously by the same family. Now, how can you talk about Perry people without talking about the Cerventi family? We're all very saddened by the recent passing of Mark Cerventi. When I saw Lou the other night, though, and conveyed my sympathy with typical Cerventi humor, he said, yeah, he was 2 years older, but he was only 1 year smarter. As they were 2 years apart in age, but only 1 year apart in school. Yeah, exactly. See, Lou, that's where your jokes go. I feel the same way. Probably a lot of you do too. In my correspondence with my good friend Mike, his son, at the passing of his dad, I asked what I could tell the audience what it doesn't already know about the Cerventi brothers. I did not know, for example, that their first business venture was running a handful of movie theaters in western PA. In a 3-year period, Mike told me, the mines closed, television wiped out the movie business. Mike added, talk about having the stars lined up against you. Things were not going well. When I saw Lou several nights ago, he said, we tried to get movies on a Sunday. We were desperate, devastated when the town refused us a license. But, he continued, if they had allowed us to have Sunday movies, we may never have gone into the cookie business. That would have changed Perry's history, that's for sure. Undaunted, Lou learned of a plan by the local chamber to float a bond issue. You know, I wrote all this down. I don't even understand it, Lou, so I'm going to skip over that. Bond issues, money. I'm a musician. I don't understand money. I'm driving a 1995 Nissan. Mark and Lou ended up with a franchise for New York from Swanson Cookie Company. Is that what started hauling cookies from PA to New York. Lou made a contact with Perry Chamber. Bill White was their key rep. With a little family money, small bond issue via the Perry Chamber of Commerce, it set them up in the original bakery in 1953. From that modest start, they built their newest family business, and 47 years later, when the business sold, they were the largest franchise of Archway Cookies with the biggest market share in the United States. How's that? This is what really made me pay attention, though, and I hope the young people here, can I say young people? Oh, that sounds so old. Never mind. I'd like you to listen to this. Mike continues, quote, despite their business success, what my father and uncle really taught us by example was how to truly run a family business. They followed the golden rule to the nth degree. Take care of your other family members before you worry about yourself. Family is the most important part of a family business. Treat your employees with honesty and respect. Everyone's job is important, and every person deserves respect and accessibility. The line that stood out to me was, family is the most important part of a family business. And when I come back to Perry, I realize that as the years pass, family has become increasingly important to me, to my brothers, and their families. As I mentioned previously, my mom and dad, Vern and Gert Saunders, as well as my brother Mark, I call them the tremendous trio, have lived at 10 Grove Street since 1942. I guessed on that one, Mark. Close. Who's counting? On June 22nd, they will be celebrating their 70th wedding anniversary. I'm told by my niece that it might be on Paul Harvey on Friday. I might check that out. Little plug there. It gives me, as well as my brother Steve and his wife Diane, my brother Dwight and his wife Linda, and my sister Ann Holmes, comfort to know that in Perry, people look after each other. This has certainly been true of my family. We know like clockwork, Carl Lowry comes down every Sunday night to put out the trash. That if Cal Phillips can't mow the lawn, neighbor Todd Campbell comes over to do the job. Charlotte Hurlburt, who looks after them, pops in, unannounced, off hours, just to see how they're doing. Janet and Dave, Betty and Cal, not to mention all their children, drop in on Grandma Gert, Grandpa Vern, Uncle Mark to see if they need anything. We know they are well looked after. A recent example of that is I casually called from Washington, D.C. I was out at the Kennedy Center working about 2 months ago. Called my parents to check up on them. Mark, as usual, always answers the phone. But not as usual, he didn't want to talk to me. And he said, talk to Dave. I said, Dave Phillips? He said, yeah. As it turns out, our faithful friend Charlotte Hurlburt dropped, as I said, she dropped by on a free day to see if everything was all right. My mom couldn't stand, was very weak, had chills. The phone went into high gear. Within minutes, Charlotte had called Janet Phillips. Janet is also like a sister to me, and whose humongous family is very much a part of our family. Called her husband Dave, who teaches at Letchworth, that other school. who she knew was the closest to my parents' house. He rushed to Timber Road, put Mom to bed. Meanwhile, our entire family had been alerted, all within 1 hour. To me, that's the kind of community we live in, and I know for a fact these acts of kindness are typical of Perry people. It gives me time to change my pages. Perry the place, Perry the people. Perry the place, what was it like in the happy days of the 50s? See if you can remember this. This will show your age. You could walk down the sidewalk at any night, greet people on their porches, kids hooting and hollering all over the place. You could walk to school in safety. You could go downtown to Jake's Barbershop or to the Hole in the Wall, catch up on current events. Nikki and Georgia DeVolis always fed any man or woman in uniform for free. You could get a good deal at Gullo's Family Furniture on that sofa you'd been saving for. You could see a movie at the old Auditorium Theater. You could get a vanilla phosphate at Ayers Drug Store, at the soda fountain. Ross Roberts was there behind his counter at Roberts Rexall. You could get a solid education with teachers like my dad, who I am proud to say was one of my favorite teachers. He actually made math fun, somewhat. And I told him one of his favorites is, he would say to the students, you all who know him, 2 and 2 equals 5. And he'd look at, everybody would look confused and say, inflation. Mr. Hughes, he will always be Mr. Hughes to me, who I still look for. I'm up there on Buckland Avenue when I'm driving by, always hoping he's going to be there on the porch, so I can go up and brag to him like I would to my parents about some recent accomplishment. Mr. Bell, Mr. Rumsey, Griswold, Keller, Coach Kroll, too many to name, who would stay after school if you needed help. Perry is a place where people flew their flags on patriotic occasions, and many like my dad just fly their flag. Our men and women in uniform were honored on Veterans and Memorial Day. There were traffic jams in church parking lots. It was a place where people believed in prayer. When someone lost their home, people were there for them, collecting food and clothing at school and at church. Music and sports flourished. Mark Saunders was your paperboy. When I look back, when I look back over this list, I realize that it's like I need the drum roll from Dave Letterman. You can still walk down the sidewalk and say hi to anybody on a given night with kids hooping and hollering. You can still walk to school in safety. You can still go down to Jake's Barbershop, and you can go next door to see Joanne and Lisa if you need to. Or you can still go to the Hole in the Wall even though you have to walk farther. Or to one of our other wonderful restaurants. You can still get a good deal at Family Furniture. You can still see a movie, but you have to go to the Arts Council. Sadly, our drugstores are not downtown anymore. We have to do something about the soda fountain. You can still get a solid education here at PCS with teachers who I know still care and will still stay after school to help kids. Perry is still a place where people fly flags, where our men and women in uniform are honored. And I must mention that my youngest brother, Dwight, and Linda's oldest son, Tyler, just graduated from basic training. I'm very, very proud of him. And of all the men and women in uniform, today and in the past. There still are traffic jams in the church parking lots, and faith in God and country is taken seriously. It's also a place where people still pray. There's a lady who prays for me and my family every day, ever since I left Perry 30 back 9 years ago, as my mother has prayed for her family. That lady is Ann Rumsey. To this day, it doesn't matter where I am in the world, I call my mom, asking her to pray with Mrs. Rumsey for that performance. And as I told my colleagues, that if you're in with Ann and Gerd, you're in. When someone's lost their home, there's a fire, there's a disaster, there are still people to help from our churches and from this school. Music and sports flourishes, and I think they're outdoing us with each passing year. We're very proud of it. And Mark Saunders could still be your paper boy. Don't worry, I'm almost done. I think about 55 years Mark has been a paper boy. My favorite story of the kindness of Perry people is just this. It's my brother Mark's 50th birthday. He was surprised, and my brother Steve, who's here tonight, was sitting on the front porch with him, and Mark always knows everything that's going on. Well, we kept this surprise from him. Up drive, Terry Kelly, then mayor, in his cop car with the siren going, and a huge hook and ladder truck behind him. They put Mark up on the hook and ladder truck, because Mark loves to go to flyers. I don't think you said it. Anyway, they took him down through Main Street and up to the village park, where we had a reception for his birthday, and the mayor presented Mark with a plaque deeming it Mark Saunders Day. I mean, that is going way out of the way to be kind. I was with friends in Norfolk, Virginia recently. I was relating one of my many Perry stories. My good friend Carolyn interrupted. She said, "You've got to understand, Dan grew up in Mayberry." It took me a few years of seeing the world to appreciate how lucky I've been to grow up in such a place as Perry. You might call me a city dweller. Since leaving Perry, I went from Chicago to London to New York to Norfolk, Virginia, and now back to New York. They say home is where the heart is. I may dwell in New York City, but I left my heart in the village of Perry. Thank you very much.
Present Dan with a commendation of distinction. One moment. Dan loves Perry, and we're grateful that he can express it so beautifully. And we know that this travelogue, this experiences, could be played out in many scenarios and many hearts. And Dan, you did a beautiful job of making Perry so real. Thank you so much. And now, thanks to Josh Wolcott and Sylvia Jocelyn, we have a slideshow entitled The Face of Perry.
Good evening. My name is Josh Audsley. I'm the high school principal here at Perry and very proud to be that. I'm not a Perry resident. I grew up over the hill, not in Warsaw, but in Attica. And the standard joke is, how long have you lived in Attica? It's 50 to 20. I'm very happy to be here, very happy to be part of this project, a small part of it, and very proud to have our kids be a large part of it. It's my honor right now to have the mayor of Perry come up, Mr. Howard Wood, and Peggy Parker, our public librarian, come up, and we're going to give them a couple of books. Penny will help me present. She was a technical assistant on this project. Yeah, before, give him a hand. Before Jessica comes out with her closing remarks, I just want to thank her very much. She won't blow her own horn, but this whole thing was carried on her back. She did a ton of work, and what a great success. It's a full house here tonight. I think everybody had an enjoyable time. I continue to learn more about Perry, and it was just a really wonderful event. And thank you very much, Jesse, for putting it all together. If I could have all the students that participated in the project, all the juniors and seniors, come on up to the stage, please.
Thank you so much, Josh. Please come up right now. And what I just fell in love with Josh Audsley right off the bat because...
Let's not to love.
Let's not to love. But when we got together, he said, you know what? I don't think people here at Perry know the alma mater. And that was like a buzzword with me because when I taught music, everybody knew the alma mater. And I said, oh, we can take care of that. So we'll have a privilege of concluding the program with the alma mater. We want to bring the students up just because we could not have had this project without their willingness to say yes. And before I make our closing remarks, also I'd like to have Dan White and Josh and Robin and Dan, if you could all come up. But before I do have a couple late-breaking announcements that are pretty exciting. We have Matt Sertel from the Batavia Daily News, who has been here all evening and has been interviewing folks. And he would like to meet with Casey Kibler and Mark and Dan Saunders out in the hallway back here afterwards so he can write an article about you and interview you and take your picture. And then also, I would like to acknowledge Amelia Cervica. If you'll remember, she was in the first group that was honored. Amelia will be receiving an honorary high school diploma this Friday at the commencement service. Now, I think many of you know Amelia's story, but you will have an opportunity to read it because the books that that Kylie and Josh gave to Mrs. Parker and Mayor Woods, you will all have an opportunity to purchase if you want. At this point, we only have 2 books, so they're very rare. But we can print on demand, and if you would like one, we will be selling them for $15. And if you are interested in ordering one, you can sign up at the welcome table afterwards. Also, Josh Audsley, your principal, told me that he would like every year to award honorary high school diplomas to citizens that for one reason or another had to drop out of school for good reasons, either due to war or supporting families. And so if you know of someone in Perry that you feel is deserving of an honorary diploma, there's also a sign-up sheet out there you could talk about, or you could write up. And then also, if you know of someone that you feel should be interviewed and would like to be a part of this process, please write their name down also on a list at the welcome table and let us know, because this is going to be an ongoing event and process. And next year we are going to be putting this year's interviews and next year's together in a real book. And also, if you are involved in English or you have a love of writing, we'd like to get the community writers involved in this process too. So it's really all about coming together. Now, one other announcement. Amelia, if your family could also meet out back, Matson would like to make arrangements to interview you and to do a story about you and your life here in Perry. In closing remarks, I would like to say that a hero says yes when asked to meet and overcome the enemy of doubt and fear. In conclusion, I'd like to acknowledge 3 or 2 more heroes in our midst. Dan Saunders and Robin Finley. I've already given a certificate of distinction to Dan, but I have one for Robin Finley. So Robin, will you come up here, please? Could not have gone forward unless Robin had said yes. And finally, I would like to acknowledge Art Tamrosky, who said to me, I have a better idea. And I love you, Art. Art could not be here tonight. If you know Art, and I'm sure many of you do, you know that for the last 2 months, he has been hospitalized. And Jeff Bennett, his sidekick and producer there at Letchworth Cable Access, and we got together and we said, we will not let this man pass on. He's got to be here. And so on Monday, when I called the TV station, I was so thrilled to hear Art answer the phone. And Art could be one of the citizens who should be honored right here. But Art, this is for you, and I'd say thank you for giving me the opportunity to realize a dream, which is to have a new adventure. I should also say that in closing, that Dan Saunders and I had an interview last night, and it will be aired next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday on Channel 19, and you'll learn more about Dan. One thing that I forgot to say was that he has been employed at the Metropolitan Opera for much of his career, and he's been asked to return to the Met this coming season, and that's a huge honor to be conducting at the Metropolitan Opera. We've been talking tonight about attributes. What words sum it up? And so I thought, I should really come up with my 3 attributes for the community of Perry. And so my 3 attributes are keeping with the P theme for Perry, and they would be positive, pristine, and principled. This is the way I see Perry, and I know that we can all see these qualities grow and they can be nurtured. And these qualities are like natural resources that are always here. We want to teach them to our children. We want to see them in each other. And that's really the purpose of this Perry Principle Project. Let's keep the conversation going, and let's meet again here next year. And now, Mike Hughes, would you lead us all, please, in the singing of the Perry Central Alma Mater. Would everyone please rise until we have the house lights on?